Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, I just had a very chilling experience. Kind of almost as if I was talking to the devil himself, so to speak. But I'm gonna leave that vague. I'm not really gonna explain it here. Although a couple of my friends that I've gotten to know, I'll tell you if you ask privately. But very very chilling. Anyhow, this video has nothing to do with that. But I figured I'd record it for posterity. Uh, anyhow, I've mentioned it before, but it's a real danger in talking to people about games because they introduce you to other games and then you find yourself compelled to buy them. And so you can get in over your head. Not over your head, but like, oh man, now I've got to go check this out too. So at some point, and I don't recall exactly how it happened, but I know that Runesinger had asked me, have you checked out A Circle of Hands? And like, no. And he goes, well, here's a link and whatever. And he goes, tell me what you think about this. And so I looked at it, and he has a series of videos which I will probably link, here, where he goes over. It's fairly exhaustive, and so I've got the PDF. I'm waiting for the book to arrive. So I've read the vast amount of it, or lion's share. Got the gist. But anyhow, this video isn't really about A Circle of Hands either. It's about one part of it, and I'm not sure. This video is also kind of like an ask, like what's your experience been, and what other games do this? So let me get on. Now that I'm just kind of circling around and talking about nothing, let me get on to it. I'm gonna be like Mercutio. Mercutio? Yeah, there you go. So anyhow, in this game, you play a member of a group called Circle Knights, and so that's the only. There's no class. That's what you are. And these people, they're not. It's at some point in the text, it talks about the fact that you don't necessarily protect each other, but you stand together. So it's a very cohesive group of people. And what how the game works, or this part of the game works, is that every player creates two characters, and then on the first venture they call them, you play your own one of your own characters, the ones you created. And then after that, and the ventures are pretty much it's that session. So you kind of have a beginning and an end to what happens that night of play or whatever it is. Then you put that character back in the pool of characters, and the next time you play, you're not allowed to play that character again, and you don't necessarily have to play the other ones you made. You can play any character that's in the pool. The only real rule is you can't play the same character twice, so you could, I suppose, alternate. But at this point, the characters become community property. And you can look down at the character sheet, and there's a couple like defining events, or I think a defining event or key event or something, and various characteristics. It's not really exhaustive. It's not one of those character creation things where you've got a million things. So you pretty much get a snapshot of what this person's motivations might be in general, or experiences, and then the rest of your play is informed by that and by what you remember about how they acted the last time somebody else played them, or the various times other people play them. One of the things you're not supposed to do is ask the other players for help, or to say, well, what would so and so think about this or that. It's up to your interpretation. So the character is now for that session yours. And Anthony had mentioned it reminded him an awful lot of something like long-running comic books, where several different authors have been involved in Spider-Man or whatever, but somehow they still manage to be this same character. They put their own little spin on them, and any other number of fictional literary characters, in all kinds of series. You pick the one that you're the most acquainted with. So, at first glance, this was the part of the game I liked the least. I'm like, I want to play my own character. That really sounds very bizarre. The funny thing is, the more I think about this, the more that's the most intriguing part of the entire game. What would happen if your character wasn't, or the characters weren't necessarily your own? They were community property. And not that like anybody during the session could say that they do this, but you have the character for one session. What would happen? I want to see what happens in actual play and what the difference is. But some of the things that were rattling around in my head as I considered this is, how would this affect how I watch other people play? Because typically, I think most of us can't help it. We're mostly thinking about how our character thinks, how our character feels, what am I going to do next, and what's the situation like. But not all the time, at least in my case, am I really putting that same level of attention on what are the other characters doing, what do their motivations appear to be, what kind of person are they. And I wonder if this would cause you to pay greater attention to that. these characters, and the other thing I think it might do, and I'm not sure, but because these characters are supposed to be part of this cohesive group, like I talked about before, I'm wondering if that might make them feel more like a cohesive group. Because often, we play members of a party, and you know, every character in the party, you might have some common goals, but every character also has their own little thing that they're really, their own little schemes, their own little motivations or whatnot. But here, all of a sudden, these characters are certainly individuals, but they're supposed to be part of a very cohesive group. And I'm wondering, as a player, whether that might, engender or promote playing in that manner, where now that everybody gets a chance to play these characters, presumably, and they may I don't know, become more real for each other, more important to each other. Their goals might become more important. I'm not sure. It's a very intriguing idea, or I don't know, I guess it's not mechanic, but method of gameplay. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm wondering what the difference would be, versus the usual my character. Because if you're like me, you tend to take a great deal of ownership over your character and become very attached to them. That entire game also, and see, I'm not really going to talk about Circle of Hands, but I will for a second. A lot of that game is about trust and about relinquishing control, and that's one part of it. So, really intrigued. So, what have your experiences been? This video's going a little longer than I want it to, but what have your experiences been, in playing any other games that have that as a method of play? What are those games that use a kind of like community pool of characters whom anybody can draw from in any given adventure? What have your experiences been? Have any of you played Circle of Hands? What have your experiences been, with that particular part of the game? What do you think about this in general? And I would encourage you to think about it for a little while, because my knee-jerk reaction was like, I don't like this. This is the worst part of the whole game. I'm not going to do that. And now I'm really kind of intrigued. So, tell me what you think.